All right, everybody, welcome back to another episode of Fantasy Football Geek. Today I'm bringing you 5 tips to dominate your fantasy draft. All right, guys, so 5 tips to dominate your fantasy football draft. For some of you, some of this might be, knowledge that you already have, but for some of us who, still kind of like go back and forth on different strategies, I really feel like these are foundational tips that, you should always kind of put into your, let's say, like 5 commandments of fantasy football or your 10 commandments of fantasy football. In fact, if you don't have a list, I suggest you make a list of your 10 commandments, things that you go back to that you say, hey, this is how I draft. These are kind of like the basic tenets of what I do. And I can be malleable, around those tenets, but I need to stick to these principles because they work, okay? Before we get into the list, I just want to thank you guys for tuning in today, and if you could do me a favor and subscribe to the channel, it is the best thing that you can do for this channel. Keeps me motivated so that I can keep it going. There's a lot of great ideas around this channel. I've got a couple other people that I'm working with to develop some things, and if I can prove this concept, then the sky's the limit. So do me a favor and hit that subscribe button and hit the alert so that you can watch the video, and like the video and drop me a comment. That really helps as well. So all right, without further ado, I'm going to get into the list. So number 5 on our list is running backs still are and always will be gold. A lot of people are playing with this zero running back strategy. I get it. In fantasy football, as we know, this is a game of skill. You want to mitigate your risks, okay? So here's the thing. If you went running back zero strategy last year, and let's say you took a wide receiver not named Davante Adams, you were in big trouble the whole year, all right? And that's kind of the problem with the zero running back strategy. You have to hit on the wide receiver that puts up 15 plus touchdowns. If you miss that guy, you're not going to be able to make it up in other positions. It has always been a kind of a staple of fantasy football, no matter what format it is, PPR or standard, whatever, running backs are key. So what we see this year, and pretty much every year, is when you get down to round 5, you are drafting running backs that are flyers. We're already into flyers. However, when you're looking at round 5 wide receivers, there's some really great options there. So in the first 2 rounds, you have to get a running back. I'm not going to say that you have to draft running back. Because there are cases where, grabbing a Tyreek Hill, depending on where you are and what's going on in the 3rd round, if you're in a PPR league, is an advantage, or could be an advantage. But you have to get a running back in the first 2 rounds. I don't care if it's PPR or not. Don't go wide receiver. I think that's a mistake. I think it makes it so that you have to be constantly on the hunt for running backs. And this year especially, last year I think we had kind of like a big push into the zero running back kind of idea. But this year people are coming back because a lot of teams struggled. So take a premier running back in the first round. You got a lot to choose from, at least first, second round. Get your RB1. You will be happy that you did it. So number 5 is running backs are still always gold. Number 4, wide receiver is one of the most volatile positions, and it's also the easiest position for you to find value. So this plays directly out off of number 5. Running backs are gold. Wide receivers, there's always a ton of value. So at the wide receiver position, we have seen the top 10 players change almost every year. I mean, there's guys that have been in the top 10, but if you look at it year over year, the 1, 2, and 3 top wide receiver is always rotating. Okay, if we look at last year, it was Davante Adams, Tyreek Hill, Stephon Diggs, DeAndre Hopkins, Calvin Ridley, Justin Jefferson, DK Metcalf, Tyler Lockett, Allen Robinson, and Adam Thielen leading out the top 10. Of those wide receivers, only Davante Adams, Tyreek Hill, and DeAndre Hopkins went in those first two rounds. Okay, Stephon Diggs was averaging 4th, 5th round. Calvin Ridley was 4th, 5th round. Justin Jefferson was later than that. DK Metcalf was 5'6". Lockett, who is still sitting in 4.56, I think that's a great value pick. Allen Robinson was a third rounder. Adam Thielen was a third rounder. So there's no reason for you to, stretch for one of these wide receivers. There's going to be guys taking in the 4th, 5th, 6th round that are going to be top 10 wide receivers this year. Mike Evans might be one of them. Godwin might be one of them. So be looking for that value. All right, number 3, balance is key. All right. So a lot of times in these mock drafts, I'm seeing teams go running back, running back, running back, wide receiver, tight end, running back, putting 5 running backs on their roster before they fill out the rest of their starters. That doesn't make any sense to me. If you're in a league where you have 2 flex positions and those can be running backs, I understand taking 4 running backs, but those are starters, right? It makes very little sense to be putting players on your bench before you fill out your starters. So pay attention. I mean, you should all know what positions you have and what your starters are, but don't be putting people on your bench before you finish your starting roster. All right. Now, you may have like a beat on a tight end that you really like, and you're going to get him in the 10th, 11th round. So you're like, you know what, I'm going to go ahead and take one guy and put him on the bench because I know there's going to be value before that guy and I'm sold on that guy. Take your guy, right? So in that case, maybe one player on your bench. But for the most part, make sure you fill out your roster before you start putting guys on your bench, okay? There's a reason guys are ranked where they're ranked, all right? So don't reach too far for guys that you're thinking mid-season are going to be valuable. It doesn't really make any sense if you can't put together an active starting roster before you take that guy. All right, so balance is key. Fill your roster, fill your starters before you start putting guys on your bench. Makes sense. All right, number 2, look for cheap backfields. What I mean by that is a starter that we know is going to get the majority of the carries and a handcuff that is not high on other people's lists. So, for example, Chubb. Chubb has a really expensive handcuff in Kareem Hunt. Odds are you're not going to get Kareem Hunt because he's a viable running back 2-3 anyway. Tony Pollard and Ezekiel Elliott. Tony Pollard's kind of an expensive handcuff, so it's like, do I really want to spend that? On the other hand, Derrick Henry, you can get who is his handcuff? Is it Darrington Evans? We don't even know. But the point is that Darrington Evans is probably, if he is drafted, he's going to be drafted in the last couple rounds, so you can snag him, or he's going to end up on the waiver wire, and you can make a move for him if needed. So other cheap backfields that I see, I really like Najee Harris because his handcuff is McFarland, and he's going to be relatively inexpensive. I'm also starting to really like Antonio Gibson. Antonio Gibson is going to get he's going to be the bell cow in Washington, and Jarrett Patterson is starting to look really, really good. So I'm thinking, hey, I can get Antonio Gibson in the 2nd round. Jarrett Patterson is basically free. Clyde Edwards-Helaire, his handcuff is going in round 15, 16. So look for inexpensive backfields where you have a shot at the handcuff, or the handcuff may even go undrafted. That way, if something crazy happens, you're able to make that move, or if you want to, you can get that handcuff cheap. All right, and the number 1 tip I have today for you to dominate your fantasy football drafts is don't overpay for quarterback. I will say know your league rules because they can vary wildly. Some leagues have bonuses for certain yards. Some leagues have standard scoring 4 points for quarterback. Some leagues have 6 points for quarterback. But in any case, don't overpay for the quarterback. If you look at fantasy points, there's more value at quarterback than any other position. For example, the league leading quarterback last year, Josh Allen, was on average going around round 9 last year. So you can find quarterback strength in later rounds. Don't sacrifice a wide receiver 1 or a running back 2 or even a running back 1 to take Mahomes. I know Mahomes is exciting. I know he's fun to have, but there is ways that I know he's fun to have, but there is tons of value at quarterback. The other interesting tip that I kind of want to give you to go along with this is stack your wide receiver and quarterback, all right? Try to get a stack position. For example, Ryan Tannehill was really cheap this year. He just got Julio Jones, right? A.J. Brown is a beast, and stacking them, putting them together, either Ryan Tannehill with Julio Jones or Ryan Tannehill with A.J. Brown, is going to give you more fantasy points. You can get Tannehill in, like, again, the 9th, possibly even later. We'll say 8th, 9th, 10th round. You can grab Tannehill. A.J. Brown obviously is going to cost you probably like a 2nd or 3rd rounder, but Julio's going in like the 5th round. So again, don't overpay for quarterback. Be looking for that value, okay? And also try to stack that quarterback with a weapon on his team, a wide receiver, or even a tight end might be interesting. Also, when thinking about cornerback, let's look at fantasy in 2019. Lamar Jackson was the #1 quarterback in fantasy, followed by Dak Prescott, Jameis Wilson, Russell Wilson, and Deshaun Watson at number 5, all right? Now let's look at 2020. Josh Allen, Kyler Murray, Aaron Rodgers, Patrick Mahomes, Deshaun Watson, a completely different set of guys. There's no guarantee that anybody that finished in the top 5 in 2020 is going to do the same thing in 2021. Let's go back to 2018. 2018, Patrick Mahomes, Matt Ryan, Ben Roethlisberger, Deshaun Watson, Andrew Luck. Again, 2019, Lamar Jackson, Dak Prescott, Jameis Wilson, Russell Wilson, Deshaun Watson. And if we look at the points differentiation between Ryan Tannehill and Josh Allen, yeah, but Josh Allen had a prolific year. It's 50 points. But if we look at that between Ryan Tannehill and, let's say, Aaron Rodgers, it's only 30 points, okay? You can make that up. Not only can you make that up, it's not that big of a difference. But if you miss out on a high-end running back or a high-end wide receiver who's putting up 250 to 300 points, yeah, that costs you to pay too much for a quarterback. All right, so those are my 5 tips for dominating your fantasy football draft. I hope that these tips will help you guys out. Please let me know what you think. Comment in below. And again, if you could do me a favor and subscribe to the channel, that would be great. Let me know if you have any questions. Put them in the comments. I'll do the research. I'll be sure to answer them. Drafts are coming up, so I'm really excited for that. My draft, my League of Record draft is tomorrow, so I will actually record that for you guys, and I'll probably put out some content around that. It should be interesting. It's an extremely competitive league. It's a league that's been going on for 20 years. Everybody in that league is really competitive, so it's a really good draft board to look at to see like kind of how real drafts are going. So I'll share that with you guys, and I really appreciate you guys tuning in to the channel. Again, hit that subscribe button, and I'll see you next time.